Hello, friends. This is Jed Disler, and I welcome you to the Piano Maven podcast, your friendly guide to piano recordings. If you follow my weekly radio show Between the Keys on WWFM.org, the classical network, you've probably noticed that at least once a year I feature an episode that's entirely given over to the keyboard sonatas of Domenico Scarlatti. This is music that is full of virtuosity, imagination, a lot of vitality and character it has. I just love Scarlatti sonatas. And there have been many pianists who revel in this repertoire's challenges and delights. Harpsichordists, though, tend to feel that the Scarlatti sonatas are their exclusive property. After all, Scarlatti did write these for the harpsichord. He did not know about the piano, at least I don't think he did. However, I'm sure that Scarlatti would have loved the piano's capacity for tone color, for variety of articulation, and even subtle pedal effects. I'm going to be talking on this episode about pianists who have recorded Scarlatti albums, meaning an entire long-playing release devoted to Scarlatti sonatas. I'm not going to get into the individual selections on these releases because for this talk, I'd rather focus on recitals that generally aim for a varied and well-contrasted program. And this is very true of a 1950 release that consists of 12 Scarlatti sonatas, played by the Romanian pianist Clara Haskell. For years, this was a highly sought-after collector's item. It was not easy to find on LP. And then, thank goodness, it did appear for the first time on compact disc, I think in 1998. These interpretations I adore. They are paradigms of control, of taste and color and ornamentation and timing and you name it, everything you need for great Scarlatti playing. No detail goes unaccounted for, yet in Clara Haskell's hands, everything just sounds so natural and inevitable. You can say the same about the French pianist Marcel Meyer and her 1950s mono recordings of 32 Scarlatti sonatas, and these are equally special. However, most piano mavens consider the 12 sonatas released by Columbia Masterworks in 1964 on an all-Scarlatti album by Vladimir Horowitz to be the gold standard of Scarlatti pianism, and I can understand why. Now, as much as I revere the original release and Horowitz's original grouping of 12 very diverse sonatas, I would try to find a 1993 reissue that was part of the Sony Classical Horowitz Columbia Masterworks collection, because this reissue presented an additional 6 sonatas from these sessions that only came out after Horowitz's death. So you actually get 18 sonatas. And of course, you can find additional Horowitz Scarlatti performances throughout many of the live and unedited Horowitz concerts that have been released in recent years. And he also did some Scarlatti on his 1962 Columbia album, The Sound of Horowitz. But this 1964 Scarlatti disc by Horowitz is your starting place, although I would try to get the Horowitz Masterworks edition mastering with the 6 additional studio performances that didn't make the original final cut. Either way, Horowitz and Scarlatti is a great pair, and I have to remember that quote. I think it was Donald Hanahan in the New York Times who said that Scarlatti was both the delight and despair of most pianists, or some words to that effect. We're going to move to the 1970s next for some more wonderful Scarlatti compilations. Anka Felek, the pianist, was all of 22 years old when she made a Scarlatti recital in 1970 for the Erato label. And this has some of the most spirited and confident Scarlatti playing I've ever heard from any pianist. I would say that if Horowitz's Rosé, then Anka Felek in Scarlatti is like a dry yet super bubbly Prosecco. In 1972, the Connoisseur Society label issued a 2 LP set featuring the late Anthony de Bonaventura playing 23 Scarlatti sonatas. I don't think this ever came out on CD, although it did come out in an audiophile cassette edition. Anyway, this is beautiful and colorful and cultivated Scarlatti playing, and I actually find it more inspired and incisive than in the 2 Scarlatti CDs that this same pianist released many years later. He didn't quite capture the magic of these Connoisseur Society recordings. And if you can find them in some way, shape, or form, they are so worth hearing. And I really wish that the Connoisseur Society label would be revived. I kind of imagine a box set of like every CD, every piano recording this label ever put out. What would that be, like 558 CDs or something? That's wishful thinking. Yevgeny Sudbin released 2 Scarlatti recitals on the Bis label. It's the first of these that I think is really special, and he takes a very pianistic approach to this repertoire, which means that he makes no bones about transposing phrases up and down an octave or a register, or filling out octaves with chords. It's very pianistically oriented, but he takes these liberties in the best of taste and with a great sense of style. So that's Yevgeny Sudbin, his first of the 2 Scarlatti recitals he made for Bis. And there's comparable finesse and surface elegance and refinement in a collection of Scarlatti sonatas that the pianist Sergei Babayan recorded for the Pro Piano label in the 1990s. I don't know where you can find the physical CD, if it's been reissued anywhere, but you definitely can find these performances as downloads and on streaming platforms. Another really imaginative interpreter who gets to the heart and the mind of Scarlatti is the French pianist Alice Adair, and she did a wonderful Scarlatti recital for the Fuga Libera label. The physical disc, again, is hard to find, but you can download it or you can stream it. And on the same rarefied level, there's this wonderful double album of Scarlatti sonatas by the Italian pianist Margherita Torretta. Definitely check that one out. The Noxus label has an ongoing cycle that will encompass Scarlatti's complete sonatas played on the piano, and each of the single disc volumes features a different pianist. A few pianists actually have done more than one disc in this series. One of my favorite in this cycle comes from the pianist Konstantin Sherbakov, and his rhythmic elan and his scintillating passage work is exactly what Scarlatti needs. I also should mention Carlo Grante, who became the first single pianist to record the complete Scarlatti sonatas on the Modern Concert Grand. And this series came out on the Music and Arts label. His meticulous approach to ornaments and phrasing really comes across in these performances, as well as his scholarly annotations. And also in progress is a complete Scarlatti cycle on the piano, issued on the Tacit label, and the pianist is Christoph Ulrich. And this has been very consistent and really, really excellent, and I look forward to its completion. It's still very much in progress. There's a double CD set on the Berlin Classics label where the pianist Claire Wannsee arranges groups of Scarlatti sonatas in the form of suites, where the movements are very smartly contrasted, but they also go very well together as if they were sonatas or suites. And I think it's an unusual yet a very rewarding way to program these sonatas. And especially that's true when you are so gifted a pianist as Claire Wannsee. That's on Berlin Classics. Definitely check that out. However, for the ultimate fusion of Scarlatti's sound world and style and the possibilities that modern concert grands can offer, I always come back to this 2-disc Scarlatti collection that first came out on Virgin Classics. It features the pianist Mikhail Pletnev, and this is Scarlatti piano playing that is all about piano playing. Mikhail Pletnev's lavish pedaling and his use of rubato and his variety of voicings are the kind of things that modern critics would like to carp about when they talk about today's pianists. But they can't get enough of these qualities when they talk about dead pianists. Isn't that something? Anyway, the music sounds so playful and charismatic in the hands of Mikhail Pletnev, and you will rarely hear such perfectly even scales and trills, or the kind of melody and accompaniment separation that makes it seem as though Mikhail Pletnev was playing on two different pianos in two different rooms at the same time. I might call his approach, I guess, Horowitz on steroids. I don't know. That also applies, by the way, to an all-Scarlatti disc on Deutsche Grammophon with the pianist Ivo Pogorelic. I didn't mention that one earlier because I like certain selections on this disc, but not others. But Mikhail Pletnev's Scarlatti seduces and entertains and sets pianistic standards that are really hard to match. So enjoy exploring Scarlatti on the piano, and I wish you happy listening. This is Jed Disler for The Piano Maven, and thank you for tuning in. Spread the good word about this podcast, and I look forward to being with you next time.